What happens if I change my Apple ID?
Hello, tech enthusiasts. Today, we're going to be diving into an important topic for all Apple users. What happens when you change your Apple ID? It may seem like a straightforward process, but it's important to understand the implications to ensure a seamless transition. So, let's dive in.
What is an Apple ID?
Your Apple ID is like your passport to the Apple ecosystem. It's a personal account that gives you access to Apple services like the App Store, iCloud, iTunes, and more. It's tied to your email address and protected by your password, and changing it isn't as simple as just swapping out one email for another. Changing your Apple ID can impact your access to purchases and data.
Why would you want to change your Apple ID?
There are several reasons you might want to change your Apple ID. Maybe your email address has changed, or perhaps you'd prefer to use a different one for your Apple services. Regardless of the reason, it's crucial to remember that changing your Apple ID affects how you access Apple services.
What happens when you change your Apple ID?
Here's where it gets important. When you change your Apple ID, all of your Apple services switch to the new ID. That means your iCloud data, iTunes purchases, App Store purchases, and more will now be tied to your new Apple ID. However, some information might not transfer, and you might need to re-establish certain settings. 1. Purchases. Purchases made with the old Apple ID, such as apps, music, or movies, remain associated with the old ID. They can't be transferred to a new ID, so you may have to repurchase these items if you want them linked to your new ID. 2. iCloud data. Your iCloud data, including photos, documents, and backups, will not be directly affected by the change. However, remember to sign out from all devices with the old ID and sign in with the new one. 3. iMessage and FaceTime. You will need to log out of iMessage and FaceTime on all of your devices and log back in with your new Apple ID. 4. Device settings. You may have to reconfigure device-specific settings, like screen time, after changing your Apple ID. In conclusion, changing your Apple ID has significant impacts on how you interact with Apple services. It is not a process to undertake lightly, and it's important to consider all of the potential impacts before making the switch. Always make sure you've backed up important data before changing your Apple ID, and be prepared for some resetting and reconfiguring. We hope this guide has been helpful, and as always, happy teching!